Previously on my weird Ninjago series thing, I talked about what I would change about Dragon's Rising Season 3, but now I think I'll move back to the other Season 3 and continue my series going through all the seasons of Ninjago. Season 3 is a bit of a strange season to talk about, definitely isn't like the previous two at all, which I think is what they were going for, but it's not the greatest transition into what I would consider a new era of Ninjago. After this season, it felt like they were trying harder to make an actual show, as opposed to the Lego set propaganda of the last two seasons, although there is a ton of set bait in the first episode specifically. One thing I liked is that the first thing said in the season is that the Age of the Ninja came to an end, because it kind of signaled that the show itself was headed in a different direction. To talk about the season itself, the ninja becoming teachers is a weird choice, but one I enjoyed, even though it doesn't really line up with their quote-unquote canon ages. The school being a repurposed version of Darkly's is also a cool detail. New Ninjago City, which is a very dumb name, has a lot of stuff that was foreign to Ninjago before this season, like those assembly line robots that I used to think were really cool for some reason. The whole season with the robots and vehicles has kind of a Transformers-ish vibe, especially in the first episode. That plan in that episode should have had a way higher chance than 4.2, by the way.
4.2% chance of success.
Another part of the show that kind of signals in the new age is the space episode, which I know some people don't like, but I think it's cool to see the ninja outside of their normal environment, forced to adapt their mentalities. And at the very least, it doesn't come out of nowhere, like some episodes in the season. Why does Cole stay so still during their first conversation? That's creepy. You're creepy. The first conversation also must have been really weird for the students that just see Zane flirting here.
Permission granted?
As the main character of the season, obviously Zane is going to be very important, despite them kind of glossing over his dad dying. The Ninjroids are actually a really cool concept, their designs being taken from Zane, and their powers are cool. I like how they fly now, and they give another Wilhelm scream while taking off half of Zane's face for the first of 2 times this season. Then there's Pixal, who at first is just boring, but exhibits more human qualities as the season goes on, especially after being hacked by Zane. She's also given half of Zane's heart, which is an interesting plot point that I really wish they did more with. I also like that Borg isn't the stereotypical, I'm not gonna let these two get together type of character, and he's actually very supportive of Pixal leaving him. And you've got to admit that her and Zane are cute together, even after he dies. Speaking of Zane's death, the scene itself is really well done, even if it comes out of nowhere and Ice is able to destroy the Overlord, which makes 0 sense. I don't really know. The love triangle arc, what a lot of people consider to be the worst thing Ninjago has ever done. And to that, I say this. I just think it's funny. It takes up way too much screen time, but I like it because funny. I also like in that one scene Misako pretends that she's giving Nia advice, but then doesn't really say anything. Speaking of Nia, the Samurai X cave is cool, kind of Batman-y, but still cool. Moving on to Cole, him being fully accepting of Nia's advances in that train thing was kind of a move on his part, but to be fair, I like the way he says weirdo.
Weirdo?
Then there's Jay, who's the worst of the 3. He should have been smarter than to fight Cole over just happening to be Nia's perfect match, and also really should have known how the trash compactor thing worked, or at least well enough to the point where he could have picked a blue-black wire thing. I really hated that. Episode 3 in general just has so many iconic quotes, though, that are mostly due to the love triangle.
Ooh, you take that back! There are reputable performers that attend Clown College!
Now, for the 4th best character in the show, besides Dareth, Corgran, and Rodrigo, Robo Usher 3000 himself, Joel. He's funny. Anyway, the love triangle is annoying, but it didn't bother me nearly as much as it did when I was a young lad. Mostly because it's actually funny. It's just mentioned way too much.
Like all boys, you can be reprogrammed.
I've got a lot less to say about Kai, so I'll make it quick. Using one of those old movie things sets up well how his character is kind of stuck in the past. All of the new outfits are cool, but I like his especially. I'm pretty sure that he does a Terminator reference in the Digiverse. And the X1 escapades are really goofy, as well as an excuse for a solo Kai adventure for an episode, which is a hoot and a half. I actually really like the way that both of these characters are handled in the season, especially Lloyd not being able to use gold against the Overlord being a good balance to his power. I also like Garmadon's oath against fighting, even if the art of the silent fist is just rage bait.
Easy, son, it is only a lesson.
So yeah, their subplot is probably one of the best parts of the season, even if the scene where the dragon robot is chasing them is just a less funny version of the scene from Thor Ragnarok. Lessons that are taught on their adventure bring forward good lessons about balance and how we live our lives, as shown by both New Ninjago City's over-reliance on technology and Lloyd's over-reliance on his powers. I like Lloyd not understanding the moving mountains thing immediately. It makes it seem more realistic than if it was portrayed differently. The best part of the season is the clash of different philosophies, which I will talk more about later, but it's well displayed through the Rapture youngling that Garmadon's ideals are flawed, because as explained in Hiroshi's Labyrinth, he believes that the golden power should be protected and honored above the person wielding it. Garmadon isn't wrong about everything though, as proven by a great scene where Lloyd is too blinded by his care for others to see that to protect his father would be to give up the golden power, risking too many lives, which is really cool, even though the Overlord just drops Garmadon anyway, which is kind of funny. Before I get into more ideology stuff, I just really wish that they had done more with Tech Wu. He was cool. Anyway, Wu and Garmadon are seen in this season to have different philosophies and teaching, shown when Lloyd splits his powers. Not only does this decision allow the next season to happen at all, it also forms a divide between the differing ideologies of Garmadon and Wu. Garmadon believes that the ninja should be controlled and micromanaged so that they don't end up causing catastrophic failure, while Wu wants to let them decide for themselves, and learn from their mistakes, seeing how far they can go. Wu's philosophy is challenged when the ninja go to space, seemingly with no way back home. Garmadon lectures Wu about his bad teachings, but then later he learns how wrong he was about certain things. This season never tries to convince you that one ideology is superior to the other, both are just different viewpoints with no real correct answer on which one is better. Now that I'm done talking about the philosophies and ideologies, all that stupid stuff, now for the humor, because that's a great segue into that. I don't really have a string of things that I want to say, just disconnected random things from this season that I found funny. So for some reason, I never got the motor mouth joke as a kid. I wasn't the brightest.
Pudding cup! My name was clearly written on it!
Well, I didn't see Motormouth on it.
Nia, who's like 13 here, is being hit on by 8-year-old boys, which is actually pretty accurate now that I think about it. Brad is a little and Cole is cool. I especially hate when Brad says uber mega and when he's a hypocritical little after seeing Cole take out a robot.
I always said Mr. Cole was my favorite!
The postman peaks in this season. I won't hear otherwise. Jay and Kai are both ableist.
They're called artificial limbs, Kai.
Jay is seen wearing a Charlie Brown shirt, and they really seem to like slow-mo shots in the first episode. The character named Cyrus Borg becomes a cyborg twice when he's kidnapped twice. Zane makes an Incredibles reference.
Excuse me? Throw me! Yeah.
And Lloyd puts on his new outfit really fast. Dareth is actually really good in his moderate role this season. I especially like the scene in the aquarium where the guard shouts alarm because the power is out. The Ninjroids remind me of the battle droids from LEGO Star Wars 3 specifically, especially Mindroid's Uh-Oh. And speaking of Ninjroid, he's murdered 3 separate times and gets twerked at by Kai. Jay and Cole in the compression machine is really funny to me for some reason. Tekwu does some Looney Tunes shenanigans. The LARPing citizens are funny.
You need to stay in character, Bork. This is no fun if we're not all committed. No.
And the Serpentine are just normal people now, despite that making the previous 2 seasons a little messed up. The movie buffs designed after the Hagemans are funny, and Lloyd is beat up by prosthetic legs. The space fights feel very Clone Wars, and I also like the unneeded extended car chase scene. And finally, the diet pill joke, which is really underrated, especially with how seriously Garmadon takes it.
Tell me, Borg, does it work?
This was supposed to be just like a quick fire section, but now it's one of the longest sections that I have. So that's interesting. The Overlord being back seems lazy at first, but they justify it with cool and interesting things happen, like him wanting his own body. I also like how he's able to Ultron his way into Ninjroid bodies too. The quality of his design varies in this season. I like his Digiverse octopus design, the way he's animated in episode 6 with the faint golden aura, And my favorite ever Overlord design is actually in episode 7 of this season, where he has the helmet but is fully black besides his eyes and cape. I just think it looks better than when he has a mouth and giant crab suit. I know that there are people who don't like the Overlord because he doesn't have a real motivation, but I think this season strikes a good balance between the coolness and aura of the Overlord and the secondary villains like Pythor or Cryptor, who doesn't really have a motivation but feels human enough based on a few lines that pick up the Overlord's slack in terms of character. They didn't do much with Cryptor until Day of the Departed besides his threat to mutiny against Pythor, which does make him feel like more of an individual. And finally, I don't think they really count as villains, but the alien life being a bug that eats metal is a cool departure from what usually happens when there's space life in shows.
She wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts. She's cheer captain and I'm on the bleachers. Dreaming about the day when you wake up and find what you're looking for has been here the whole time. If you can see
They took a surprising amount of things in this season with a level of seriousness that was unexpected, even at the time it came out. First, the openings in most of the episodes are taken rather seriously, with episode 2 especially having a dystopian feel to it. The action in the season was also surprisingly good, with my favorite being Zane going full Doom Guy on some Ninjroids while trying to save Pixal with some pretty good hand-to-hand combat. And that fight came right before turning off the power, which was a good plot point that very organically introduces Pythor, with both the Electro-Cobra and the White Scale hinting at it being a Serpentine. The entire season is actually really good at tying together all of the plot lines in a natural way, with every major scene moving every plot forward. For example, the Junkyard scene advanced the ninja's investigation and Garmadon's decision to go into Hiroshi's labyrinth, which, in turn, progressed the Overlord's capture of Lloyd. Another cool idea introduced is the Serpentine having their own prophecies and an altered history of Ninjago to paint themselves as the heroes, which is also explained by Acidicus being the chill librarian story guy, which is a very unique way to do exposition.
When the first Spinjitzu master.
Another important Serpentine whose name starts with an A is Arcturus, who I'm really glad they mentioned in this season. It just makes the world feel more real and complete to have something named after a historical figure. The time travel plotline being brought back was also nice, even though it led to the line.
I remember because I was there.
But I do like the detail that it doesn't show up in any recorded history. There are other really good and serious scenes that aren't as important, like the ones where characters are floating into the nothingness of space, which are really tense and well done. I'm really glad that Ninjago is willing to take certain scenes seriously, like Zane's death and funeral, where the theme of balance is actually brought up again, and the whole scene just ties the whole season together really well, even though you know he's going to be back because of the last part where they went ham with the music. Despite how much I'm talking this season up, there are plenty of things that, unfortunately, I don't like. The exposition in the first few episodes is a bit clunky, which I can kind of forgive because it was originally going to be a 40-minute special. I don't know why Jay is spinning around in that one shot. I'm not particularly fond of the Technoblades either. They should have leaned into them being able to hack anything more, instead of them basically just being USBs for the Digiverse, which I find a little lazy. The reuse of certain sounds really annoyed me this season, specifically Pixel having the same scream as Nia. Most of the problems in this season, though, come from not having enough time to properly use the different really cool concepts they introduce. The animation still isn't great either, with Garmadon fighting being really messed up for some reason. Garmadon also has a fake-out death that adds nothing whatsoever to the plot. The Digiverse episode wasn't particularly interesting. The stuff that's happening in the real world is more interesting, like that transition that everyone loves. The part where Zane turns gold, though, feels like it's trying way too hard to be deep while not actually saying anything. Maybe if they somewhat teed up the "I'm just Zane" line, I would have liked it better. The ninja arguing about going into space comes out of nowhere and leads to nothing, so I don't know why it was included in the first place. The elemental shields also come out of nowhere and are never brought up again, and that becomes a common problem in the last episode, which is easily the worst of the season. They seem to have had no idea how to make the Overlord beatable, so stuff just came out of nowhere, like the Temple of Fortitude and Zane's sacrifice. The stone armor also came from nowhere, but was a cool concept until it just stopped working after a bit, and it's never explained why, despite them asking why themselves.
Dancing in the dark, with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass.
This season is really good, having some really good and really bad elements shoved in. The quality of the pacing and plot development is impressive considering time restraints both with the number of episodes and actual time given to make the season. The last thing that I'll say is that I can't really describe it as a good or bad season, as it has major ups and downs, so Season 3 gets a 6.5 out of 10. Definitely could have been better. Have a good day.